Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the City Council meeting for May 5th, 2008 to order. As always, first thing on the agenda is roll call and determination of the quorum. Jackie, if you would, please.
McCroy. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Hadcock. Here. Hurlbeck. Okrepke.
Here.
Chapman.
Here.
Weifenbach.
Here.
Olson. Here. Kroger.
Here.
Quaker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Just a couple of reminders. If you have a cell phone or if you have a pager, please turn that off. The other thing is, if you do wish to speak this evening, we do have speaker request forms. You'll find them on the table over here by the media. And if you could fill that out, including the agenda item, and turn it into Jackie down at the end of the dais here, that way we can make sure that we don't overlook you as the item comes up on the agenda. Next thing, as always, we will please rise for the invocation. Mike Schultz from First Wesleyan Church will be giving the invocation. And then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Scripture is clear that those who are in authority are so by your hand. So I pray for our mayor and our city council as decisions are made, the staff that they work with, all of the things that have to be tended to and cared for on behalf of our city. I thank you for the great motto of our state, that under God the people rule. And so I pray that they would be mindful of their constituents, but more than that, mindful of their responsibility to you to lead in a way that would help this city. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. The chair would ask if there's any additional items that would be added to the agenda by the council. I did have an item. We were going to talk about the billing issue over at the water treatment plant, but I do see that Alderman Quaker has an item 70. I assume it would be all right to actually talk about then. Very good. We won't add anything then. Additional items, Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not an addition of an item, but to move an item, to move item number 57 in front of item number 56.
Thank you. Actually, I believe that we don't need to do that because I believe we're going to take this back to legal and finance. I was just told about that right before the meeting, but thank you anyway. Any additional items to be added to the agenda? Any additional items? Seeing none, the chair would look for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second to adopt the agenda without any changes. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 21st, 2008 City Council meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of the April 21st, 2008 City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Awards and recognitions, we do not have any this evening, so we will move straight into general public comment period. This is the time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at tonight's meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by the unanimous vote of the city council members present. We do have one from the Front Porch Coalition, and I also have a second one from Billy Mitchell. So we'll include Billy Mitchell be number 2. So Stephanie Dixon, if you're here, if you could come forward and just identify yourself for the record, please. And just so you know, we do time these. We do allot 3 minutes for you.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Schweitzer Dixon from the Front Porch Coalition. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for the assistance and the financial support that you were able to provide us through the city subsidy funding. And the LOSS team, we always appreciate any support we're given. First, for those of you listening who do not know what the LOSS team does and what services it provides, I'd like to take a minute to explain what it is they do. The LOSS team, which is the local outreach to suicide survivors program, provides support to family and friends who have just lost someone to suicide, responding to the scene of a suicide at the request of the Pennington County Sheriff's Office. The team members, all of whom are all volunteers who are on call 24 hours a day, provide support to those family members, ensure that no one else is suicidal and that everyone is safe and has a place to stay that night should they need it, providing them with resources relating to the type of loss that they just incurred. I'd like to thank the team members for their dedication to this important service. I'd also like to thank the Pennington County Sheriff's Office for their support and assistance in providing this service to the community, as well as the Rapid City Police Department. What I'd like to ask from you very briefly in this evening is that, as many of you know, our community has experienced the suicide deaths of 7 youth ages 11 to 18 over a span of 18 months, and 4 young adults who are ages 18 to 25. Currently, every year in Pennington County, an average of 20 people take their own life. Our organization provides support to people who have lost someone to suicide through the Lost Team and a support group. We also provide education and training on how to prevent suicide from happening by recognizing the warning signs that people who are suicidal exhibit to others that they know and they're close to. We teach people how to get someone at risk of suicide the help that they need that can save their life. Now, this is a subject matter that most people are uncomfortable talking about, but considering how serious the problem has become in our community and among our young people, everyone does need to talk about this, learn how to recognize those warning signs, and know what to say and do to get someone the help that they need. People often ask me why this is happening in our city, in our community. Well, every situation is always different, and this isn't always the case. What our Lost Team members have discovered while talking with family and friends is that most people who have taken their own lives have not been receiving any mental health treatment or treatment for excessive drug and alcohol abuse. Many have even told someone that they were suicidal and that they didn't know what to do to help them, or they just didn't think that they would ever take their own lives, yet they did. The larger problem in our community seems to be that stigma that's associated with people not seeking professional help for a mental illness, a substance abuse problem, or a related traumatic problem that they're dealing with. What I'm asking from all of you as city council members, civic and community leaders, business people, is to help us to work to raise awareness of not just what our organization does in the community, but that mental illness and substance abuse is a real illness that is treatable, that suicide can be prevented, and that without help, people will die by their own hand. They will leave family members and friends to wonder why and live with guilt and grief and be at risk of taking their own life as well. People do need to know that more people suffer from depression than they do heart disease. More people die by their own hand, by the hand of someone else. So what we at the Front Porch Coalition are doing is working to secure the funding needed to implement a public awareness campaign about the importance of seeking appropriate mental health care in order to prevent the incidence of suicide. We will work with other mental health providers in the community, but any assistance that the city, you as business people, community members can do to help us to raise that awareness would be helpful. Please let people know that we offer, free to the public, suicide prevention training, and encourage them to contact us to get more information on how to help someone at risk of taking their own life and help them get the mental health care that they need. With your help and the help of the providers in the community, together hopefully we can dispel that myth and prevent the number of suicides that are occurring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have, normally we don't take a whole lot of interaction here, but I think there may be a comment from Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Yeah, just a very brief thank you, Ms. Dixon, for bringing this issue forward. And clearly it's a meritorious issue, but I think we need to run this through the same channels that other worthy projects also need to go through. So I would just recommend that we bring this forward at Legal and Finance for direction from there at our next Legal and Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Or do you want to? No, we don't. I think we can just. I think probably the appropriate task is we're actually starting a budgetary process, Ms. Dixon, and so if you want to submit something to my office, we actually have line items within our budget for subsidies, and you can certainly get a hold of Kay in my office, and we'll make sure that the council members get copies. Thank you. No. Okay, we also have a speaker request form from Billy Mitchell with Rapid City Professional Firefighters.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. later on this summer, we're going to be putting on a program amongst our local and with the cooperation of the fire department. It's called Fire Ops 101. Basically what this is a program where we can educate our political leaders and members of the media as to exactly what we do and how we do it. And basically this will consist of some classroom time and some actual scenarios. And we would like every one of you who is interested to come and participate. We'll be inviting members of the media as well. Right now, one scenario that we know we're going to do is a vehicle extrication scenario. We'll have some junk cars out there. We'll show you how to operate the tools and then put you to work, see if you can cut the car apart. We're also planning on doing some interior fire attack scenarios, put you in gear with our air packs, see what it's like to drag hoses through buildings. We are also planning a live fire scenario. You will not be participating directly in that. In order to get you in a live fire scenario, there would be a couple of weeks of training before we would be comfortable putting you in that. Not to mention Jason would have a heart attack. So we will be doing a live fire scenario that you'll be right up against it, be able to feel the heat and see how we do it. And another scenario we're also planning on doing is we call it a mega code, and that is working from beginning to end a cardiac arrest, complete with our simulators, defibrillators, drugs, all the other tools we use in that kind of scenario. And I would love to have all of you come and participate. If you're interested, please let me or Chief Rolfing know. And we're planning to do this sometime the end of June, beginning of July, based on your schedules and our own. Obviously, we won't be able to do it in August. That's our busiest month. But we'd really love to have you come out and participate and show you what it is that we do. And if we really want, we can probably talk the chief into letting us play with the new ladder truck, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Very good. Seeing no further speaker request forms, we are on to the non-public hearing items. This is items 2 through 73, and the chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period on items 2 through 52, please.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public comment period on items 2 through 52. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the public comment period. We do not have any speaker requests on items 2 through 52. If not, Chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period on items 2 through 52.
So moved. Mr. Mayor.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if they understood the way we do business.
Okay.
He has a article number 4.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
I'm a rookie at this, so. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Dan Michael, and this is my wife, Judy Michael. We live at 3931 Park Drive. And what we have before you, I need reading glasses. You can have those. Is item number 4. And hopefully you have the documentation with you. I recently, within the last 5 weeks, build a footbridge across what apparently is a major drainage easement on my property. Did it for fairly noble reasons, and that was to get my wife to the other side so that she could maintain the other side of our property. Right now, the only way we can get to that property is crossing through my neighbor's yard, which is a little difficult with the lawnmower pushing it up there. I've maintained that area for erosion control reasons, and unbeknownst to me, again, I didn't realize, 1, it was a drainage easement, 2, that I needed a building permit, and obviously ignorance is no excuse. What I am asking, however, is that the City Council review my case. What I will tell you from the outset, as I indicated in my letter, that I may not agree with the decision of the City Council tonight, but I will defer to your judgment. And if the decision is to tear the footbridge out, which I will not do very cheerfully, as it did cost me a fair amount of money and a fair amount of stiffness for 3 to 4 weeks, I will begin tearing that bridge out immediately upon the decision of the council, if that is the decision of the council. So I thank you for the time, and I wait to hear your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy?
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Okay, we're still in the public comment period. Are any other additional public comments on items 2 through 52? Any additions? If not, the chair again would look for a motion to close the public comment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public comment period for items 2 through 52. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the consent calendar, item 2 through 52. If you turn on your light, if you want any polled, I do note number 4, 5, and 26 we need to poll. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you've already described polling number 4.
4, 5, and 26. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go to Bob Dominic. Oh, I'm sorry, Marcia. They haven't changed the lights yet. Oh, by the way, Marcia, welcome back.
Only gone a month.
I know you've been gone for a while, and I guess we always assume you're around, but what
Item
number,
50,
please?
please.
50.
There was
Thank-
no slip, by the way.
It did come up as Bob, so when I start calling you Bob tonight, you'll understand. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 40.
Item number 40. And let's go to Ron Weifenbach,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe number 6?
number 6. Okay. Any additional? So far, I have 4, 5, 6, 26, 40, and 50. Any additions? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Item 25, please.
And item 25. Okay, thank you. Any additions? So we are at 4, 5, 6, 25, 26, 40, and 50. Any additions? If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of 4, 5, 6, 25, 26, 40, and 50.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to item number 40. And let's see, I believe that Deb, you need to probably read this. No, I'm sorry, Public Works. Boyd, would you please read number 4 in place?
Is to approve the request, approve a request by Dan and Judy Michaels of 3931 Park Drive to change the language of the easement to grant the exception to allow the footbridge spanning a drainage easement with the removal of the middle support. And motion be for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have visited with Dan and Judy real recently, actually, and looked at their footbridge, which I should say is very attractive. And so it's not like they have not done something that isn't attractive. But the key thing for me is this becomes a public safety issue because this bridge is in a major drainage. It is in the Wonderland drainage basin, and there is a study which describes to some extent the flows that would be experienced in this particular drainage area. So while aesthetically the bridge seems fine, in terms of long-term public safety, there are some implications which I felt I needed to discuss. I visited with Dr. Scott Kenner, who is the hydraulic engineer from the School of Mines, and he too shared my concerns. This is one drainage in which he has spent a great deal of time studying and is very familiar with the increasing flows. For those of you on the council who took the drainage tour last spring, and you might have noted that Dr. Kenner observed that in a number of drainages, with the increased impermeable surfaces throughout the community for various reasons, more paved roads, more finished roads, more parking lots, the drainage in many areas has increased, and so that the velocity as well as the volume of water has increased substantially. So when we talk about this bridge, we're talking about an important public safety issue. Mr. Michaels and I both discovered we lived in Rapid City at the time of the 72 flood, and I think we share some of the concerns about the implications for public safety that exist because of that. So as we look at this, I don't think it's simply a matter of property rights when we talk about this, nor is convenience an element of this. What we're really talking about is setting a precedence of putting private property in what is designated as a drainage. And a drainage, it becomes very important that it maintain the same amount of space that to allow water to pass throughout the history of this particular drainage area. And one of the obligations of citizens, and we certainly know that in development, anytime a development occurs, it's important that the downstream folks continue to experience the same kind of drainage flows that have been experienced in the past. And I feel that this is a concern with this particular bridge. So I would urge my colleagues that while this was fairly quickly approved, that when we agree to this, we essentially are asking, we are putting forward an important precedent. Number one, we could be in the situation where all the homes along this Park Drive could request and build a bridge. And if they all build a bridge, the potential then for blockage and backing up could occur, which I think is an important downstream problem. Could even affect upstream folks, and if something is blocked and the water doesn't go down. We've lived in a 7-year period of drought, and so for most people who are living adjacent to this particular drainage, they're not aware of how the potential hazard that exists. In addition to that, in visiting with a number of folks who live in various drainages, particularly the Arrowhead drainage area, the Red and the Chapel Valley drainage area. In each case, they experienced some flooding last summer to their real shock. And increasingly, I think the city is going to have to look very carefully at doing a lot more work in drainage areas, and much of this work really is the responsibility of individual property owners. So as you look at drainages, there are trees growing them. In fact, I've walked through the Arrowhead drainage area that's adjacent to the neighborhood along Sheridan Lake Drive, and they are very concerned, and they are beginning as an association to work very actively to remove even sapling trees and things that have begun to grow in the drainage, because frankly, our engineers will testify to the fact that clearing it is the best way to handle that. So I would urge my colleagues not to support this, the motion on the floor, because I think it poses some problems, and I would certainly suggest that the way to handle this would be that Mr. Michaels, if he wishes to maintain this bridge, that he would have a hydrology study that would really confirm that there's plenty of space for the historic levels of water that move through this drainage to move freely without being impeded by the bridge as it exists. And I certainly sympathize with the Michaels and the fact that they've built something attractive. It's really cute. I went out and looked at it. But when we're talking about safety, I think the larger issues of upstream and downstream concerns are very important, and so I would urge my colleagues not to support the motion, and at the very least I would want to talk to Jason and see if there isn't a stipulation requiring some kind of hydraulic study that would confirm this. My colleagues, I sent you a letter which I received from Dr. Scott Kenner, and he offered a number of alternatives that might be looked at in order to secure the safety of this issue. So please take a look at that. And Mr. Kenner would have been here, Dr. Kenner would have been here today, but he's out of town. So I would offer a substitute motion that this be brought forward with the stipulation that a hydraulic study be made to ensure the safety of this drainage for all those who live adjacent to it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a substitute motion. Do we have a second? Yep. Okay, we have a substitute motion and a second. And that motion is to require a hydrology study prior to any approval. Let's go to Jason Green just for a note. I think Jason actually put a series of emails with an opinion actually in your folder, so if you'd reference those, please. Let's go to Jason Green.
Thank you, Mayor. I did send an email to the council, and Growth Management Director Ms. Elkins followed up on that. The city has an ordinance in place that prohibits structures in drainage easements. You also have an ordinance that declares those structures to be public nuisances. So it's my opinion the council doesn't have the legal authority to grant the request as presented or even as presented in the substitute motion. If you would like to do that, you would need to amend the subdivision ordinances that prohibit them and that describe them as public nuisances. That process would have to start in front of the Planning Commission. In addition, as Ms. Elkins points out, there is a note on the plat identifying that these easements have to be kept free of obstructions. Michaels would have to go through the process to vacate that note on the plat, again starting with the Growth Management Department. So those are my comments for the evening. If there are questions, I'll attempt to
Okay,
address
very
them.
good. Let's go to Deb Hadcock.
I agree with what Jason just said, and Karen, I agree with what you said as well, because when we talked about it this morning, the main issue is the Michaels was to continue it so they could get a permit if that could be possible, but at this point, it sounds like that's not possible. And I went out and saw the bridge as well, and it's a nice looking bridge. I'd like to have that bridge across where I live if I have a drainage easement, but but it sounds like by ordinance, we cannot follow through with that. And you have put a lot of time and effort in that. I would hope you would understand where we're coming from based on the standards on stormwater and things that we are dealing with in floodplain right now. That makes a issue there. And where I saw on your property with the 10-foot wall you have with an 8-foot grassland on the other side, it actually made a funnel which goes and affects the stormwater downhill. So putting the bridge across, it is a beautiful bridge, but be careful when you even change the stormwater drainage on your property too, because what happens is then you flood the people downstream. And there's like a 6x4 culvert down there, and it's huge. And it does do major effects to what is downstream, and that's what Karen is referring to by Scott Kenner's information on this issue. And I do feel bad for you because it is a nice bridge, and I love it myself, but we have to follow what ordinance says. So I don't know what to say besides that, but you did a great job.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of all the conversation, but more, I think pertinent, our city attorney's conversation, I would put a second substitute motion on the floor to deny the request.
Okay, we have a second substitute motion and a second to deny. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. This reminds me in a way of the Tuscany Square situation, where the applicant was proposing something which sounded quite logical, but the city ordinance didn't agree with that, and the council was able to come up with a solution that protected the interests of the public and also move the process forward and ultimately benefited the community. I think that in this case the council could be quite justified in staying enforcement of this for 2 weeks or 30 days to allow a chance for a hydraulic study to be completed, and perhaps there's already one on file and that we could check. So I understand where Alderman Chapman is coming from, and if we had that information in front of us and it showed that there was no other solution, I would support his motion. But I do think that we have an opportunity to look for another solution. So I would offer I can't. Okay. So I guess I would encourage the council to consider voting down the motion on the floor and continuing this back to Public Works for additional consideration.
Thank you. Sorry about that. There were two motions on the floor. Actually, three motions on the floor, so we couldn't go to another one. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You certainly gave a good presentation on Tuesday, and it did come forward to us with a lot more information here at City Council, and I appreciate Jason coming to bat and Marcia to clarify a few things. I got a couple questions. How close or how far is this into the easement? Did anybody figure that out?
I think it actually goes across the entire easement.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you can't build anything over top of it?
No.
Nothing at all?
No, I'm looking at Jason Green, and the answer is no.
So nothing can be there in an easement? Absolutely nothing? Okay, well, anyway, have we had more information? Yes.
You can ask, I'll tell you what, this is going to get a little tricky, and I apologize for this. Alderman Okrepke can ask a question, but I can allow you to come back up and answer the question, but since we've closed the public comment period, I can't allow you to basically go back and revisit. But if Alderman Okrepke has a question, he certainly can ask that.
Are you willing to do that hydraulic, that study?
Mr. Michaels, my apologies. I need to
No problem. Again, I'm a little green at this, so if possible, I would rather withdraw the request than go through any more heartache and pain and money, and it's not worth it. I've lost too much sleep over this, and I was just trying to get access to the back of my property, and obviously I've violated the ordinance. At this point, if possible, I would like to withdraw my request.
Okay.
I will begin deconstructing the bridge immediately.
Okay. Question has been called. Is there a second? Okay. There is a motion and a second to call the question. Is there any objection to calling the question? If there is, please speak up. I won't look at the lights. Seeing none, the question has been called. I think we go immediately back to the second substitute motion. That motion is for denial. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Let's take a roll call, please.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Adcock,
Aye.
Hurlbut,
No.
Okrepke, Chapman,
Aye.
Reifenbach, Olson, Kroger, Quaker.
No.
Motion passes 7-3. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Michaels. We appreciate it. We're on to item number 5. Let's see, and this is, I'm not sure, this is under the Public Works Committee item, so Lloyd, please read that in.
This is to acknowledge the city cleanup day report. Move for approval.
We have a motion, second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Have a light from Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Actually, that was old light, but I'll speak.
Well, if that's the case, we'll move on.
We had a great day, and I know some other council members had great days on the city cleanup that day, and we appreciate everybody's help in Rapid City. I think this is the subject one, isn't it? It's the cleanup day. Okay. I appreciate everybody that helped me and helped our city. Thanks for the great job. It's actually fun, believe it or not, seeing what you can do for your city and making a difference. So thank you to everybody that's helped.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I got two parts. First of all, I'd like to ask Public Works Director, if I may, what some of the numbers that he came up with, that he shared with us at Public Works.
Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a couple of quick facts here. We received about 1,849 pickup loads of waste Monday through Saturday. That translated into about 668 tons of refuse. We also received 482 pickup loads of yard waste, and that translated into about 271 tons of yard waste. Very successful event. The weather hampered some of our efforts, but we still had a very positive outcome. I would like to thank all the volunteers that helped. We did have 60 registered groups of volunteers, and that was an equivalent of 1,000 volunteers that helped with the effort this year. And so we'd just like to give a big thank you to those volunteers for donating their time and energy towards the effort.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Okrepke, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So this was a pretty beneficial endeavor that we had for our community. Kate Ribbentrop, who's been with the city councilor for the city for almost 40 years now, came up and gave us some thoughts which she had, and I'd like to quote a little bit from this. She goes, "A little over 1,000 people were involved in cleaning the public-owned areas, and that is something that the public should be aware of and the city can be proud of. This does not include those groups working independently and did not register with me, of which I know there were several that just go out and work, not asking for any kind of recognition. As usual, the city crews did a tremendous job in handling the landfill all week long, as well as the traffic on Highway 79. The cleanup day activities is truly a group effort by the city employees and volunteers who work hard during this time to clean our community." And that speaks very, very well of our community and what your city is doing for you. Keeping our community clean, our waterways picked up, the trash out of their waterways and so forth. That's a big deal, and it's a big safety issue, and it just makes it nice for our community. And I appreciate all the people that were involved, and I know the Public Works had a whole lot of people at the dump to help unload, and it was just a good day for everybody, even though it was the weather didn't cooperate. So this happens every year, and I would encourage all of us to partake in it and be included in it. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion on the floor is for approval of the acknowledgement of the City Cleanup Day report. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6, please.
Item number 6 is to acknowledge the South Creek Village Drainage Report. Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Discussion on that motion. There we go. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
If you read this report on the drainage update, that gives you a positive of what just happened with building in a drainage or what happens in a drainage. So that's why Jason and the Public Works and the Marsh Elkins need to make sure those drainages are kept clear. So it just kind of reinforces that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob is here. Is there a way we can get just a little bit of presentation, a synopsis of how this is unfolding? Excuse me.
Bob, are you prepared to give us a very quick presentation? Or just an explanation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, on April 17th, there was a meeting held on site with representatives of the Corps of Engineers, Public Works, the contractor, Growth Management, reviewed what the problems were out there, what some of the ideas were to take care of it. Working with the Corps of Engineers, because there are some wetlands involved, they decided that there weren't enough wetlands being disturbed where we were going to have to get any special permits from them. They would not have to review our work that we were going to do. The process right now is we're locating the outlet end of the pipe from that goes through the dam. That's going to have to be handwork, and then what happened Friday and what's going on Saturday didn't help that any, so that's been delayed for a few days. Once that's done, then we'll pump out the water and the sludge that got into that pipe. That way we can get some real good elevations on the pipe to see what the slope of that pipe is. Then from there, determine what really has to happen. There will be some permits that have to be obtained from the DENR, and we're looking at the contractor taking care of that. Most of it is just excavation, and we've gotten permission that the excavated material can be spread out in the outreaches of that detention pond, won't have to be hauled off very far. Right now we're working with the contractor to coordinate schedules for him to get his permits, get people out there to do that handwork, and then we can go back out there and get some more information. And that's where we stand right now.
Ron, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is to approval of the acknowledgement of the South Creek Village Drainage Report. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 25 under Legal and Finance Committee consent items. Item number 25, please.
25 is to approve the travel request for Deb Hadcock and Lloyd LaCroix to attend NLC program Welch's, Oregon, September 10th through the 13th, 2008, in the approximate amount of $5,000. And I move approval.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I realize this has become somewhat of a sensitive topic, but I like to keep my remarks brief. I think that from a general policy perspective, it would be very reasonable for this council to adopt a practice which I believe was in place in an unwritten way a number of years ago, but a practice of having no more than one out-of-state trip per council member per year. I think that's a reasonable request. As far as this specific travel request, I would note that there are two Leadership Training Institute seminars being offered this summer by National League of Cities. The second one is at the Resort at the Mountain in Welches, Oregon, which is the application tonight. The first one is June 29 to July 1 here in Rapid City, and I would encourage my two colleagues to attend the first one instead. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Sam Quaker. Thank you, everyone. Item number 26, please.
Number 26 is a confirm appointment of Paula Longfox, Jay Davis, Evelyn Kelly, Father Paul Sneevy, Alderman Lloyd LaCroix, Community Resources Director Kevin Tome, and City Attorney Jason Green to a subcommittee to draft the proposed Human Relations Committee ordinance. And I move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Just note from the chair, the reason I actually requested that to be pulled, this was a request by the city council that it be brought back at the earliest possible convenience. And I just wanted to make sure everyone realized that this was coming through the process. Thank you, everyone. Motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 40 under Legal and Finance.
Number 40 is approved resolution authorizing the issuance of gross receipt revenue bonds, Series 2008, of the City of Rapid City, South Dakota, pledging the revenues of the gross receipts tax of the city to the payment of said bonds, authorizing officers of the city to approve, execute, and deliver certain agreements and documents relating to the bonds. And I move approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question since I don't serve on the Legal and Finance Committee. What rates do we expect on these bonds? I was somewhat confused. There was some language not to exceed 2%.
I think it's 2% over the U.S. Treasury, but let's go to Mr. Preston, City Finance Officer.
Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, it's what we expect, and we received a number of different rates, and I can show you, give you some rates that were indicated here. Essentially, it's like 2.3 to my apologies, I didn't. But it could 2.3 to essentially about 5. The last time we issued these, Mayor Hanks will remind me, it's like 3.11 was the average, but there's no guarantee on what that coupon rate will be. But it's in that spectrum.
Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Just another question regarding procedure. Will we see this again, and will we have the opportunity, based upon what rates that we get, that we can, I guess, give the final approval, or is this the final approval the council has?
This is actually the resolution. This will be coming back to us, but to answer the second part of your question, I don't think that we'll actually know what the exact rates are until actually the bonds are actually issued. I'm looking at Jason Green. So we won't know exactly what the rates are, but you will see this again. Is that correct, Jason?
Actually, I believe this is the final step.
Okay, very good, thank you. This is, okay. Alderman Johnson, you still have the floor, sir.
Again, the only reason why I asked was because of other travel. When we talked about, the NLC was talking about bonding being higher, and I just want to make certain that we're bonding at the right time. The rate does make a difference in payback and a number of things, so that's my only concern. But if it's somewhere between 2.3 and 5, I guess I could probably go with that. I was just concerned that it may be higher. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mayor.
Any further discussion? Mr. Preston, do you have something to?
I was just going to explain. When I said 2.3, that's probably the neighborhood of the short, which is a year or two out, and then as they get longer out there, the rate would increase. That's why I say the rates would fluctuate from 2.3 to about 5. And again, we try to monitor that and try to take advantage of the most favorable rate for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We're on to, let's see, item number 50. Layout plats. That would be Lloyd, if you could read that in for us, please.
This is a request by DC Scott Surveys, Inc. for Blue New Enterprises LLC for a layout plat. And this is located at the intersection of Lane Street and Deadwood Avenue. And the motion be to continue this to June 2nd at the applicant's request.
Second.
We have a motion and second to continue this. I'm sorry, when?
June 2nd.
June 2nd. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That takes us to the end of the consent calendar. We are on to the non-consent items, items 53 through 73, and the chair would look for a motion to open the public comment period for items 53 through 73.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the public comment period for items 53 through 73. I do not see any speaker request forms on items 53 through 73. Just make sure we don't overlook somebody. If not, the chair would look for a motion to close the public comment period, item 53 through 73.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public comment period. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 53, and Alderman Deb Hadcock, if you could read that in, please.
Number 53 is the first reading of ordinance number 5387, amended and restated ordinance number 3399, ordinance relating to parking improvements, creating special funds and accounts for the administration of the monies derived therefrom, authorizing and directing the issuance and sale of revenue bonds to pay the cost improvements to the municipal parking system, and defining the terms and manner of the payment of the bonds and the security thereof. And I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. Let's try that again. We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. And I have a question regarding the use of fine revenues to fund the bond. And I'm not sure what the amount is annually that the city takes in terms of the fines. But between now and second reading, I'd sure like to have a breakdown of that information, and it would be great if we could find a way to proceed with this without using the fine monies. And I would note that many other governmental bodies for years have had a standing practice of for example, when police departments write tickets, those revenues go into a separate fund rather than that budgeted item. There's a reason for doing that. So I would encourage us to see if we could find a way to do something similar between now and second reading. Thank you.
Very good. Well, I'm pretty sure we'll get you that information. Additional comments? Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
Mayor Hanks, could you explain this a little bit more so we're understanding? I don't think all the fine money's going in there, and I guess I'm not getting...
Why don't we do this? Since this is first reading, when this comes back for second reading on the way through, we'll have a presentation at Legal and Finance.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Just one comment. I know when I went to Denver,
Oh, I'm sorry, Public
they
Works.
use their parking meter fund, and they build different parking lots and different things like that. And I know I put meters in front of my building so people from different areas didn't park all day at my parking spots, because I rent buildings and businesses across the street too, and I thought that was a great way to pay for it. And if you're saying it's because of fines, we're going to fine you more, then that sounds a little bit different than we're doing it for the right reasons, not the wrong. If you get a fine, it's because you know a lot of times you're going to have one. So I'm not trying to be argumentative on Mr. Quaker. I think some of his things that he brought up are very positive on some issue, but the other, it can be a positive the other way as well. So
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Let's go to Ron Weifenbach. And just a reminder, everybody, the motion on the floor is a first reading of the ordinance. It really doesn't have anything to do with the fines, but we will get you that information prior to the second reading. With that, Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to note that fines aren't what is paying back these bonds, as I'm assuming that's what this is. I'm not sure where we're going with what to do with the fines. Maybe Alderman Quaker has an idea of what to do with that. But overall, the bonds are going to be paid back by fees that are attributed to parking, meters, those types of things. I just wanted to make that point that fines aren't used to pay back this particular bond in whole. And if we're looking at percentages, maybe we could find out what percentage of these bonds are going to be paid back by just regular parking. I think the fines are probably a smaller portion of what's paying back these bonds, and I just wanted to make sure that we understood that. Thank you.
Very good. We'll make sure that we'll have that presentation. And this actually, since it's an ordinance, it needs to come back through legal and finance, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure. Very good. The motion on the floor is for approval of first reading, ordinance 5387. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 54, please.
Number 54 is the first reading of ordinance number 5389, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, rezoning the within described property as requested by Jamie Carpenter for a rezoning from neighborhood commercial district to medium density residential district located at 4144 Haynes Avenue. And I move to continue till May 19th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue this item to May 19th. Any discussion on the continuation motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 55, please.
It's a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineering, Inc. for Huey Clemens for a layout plat. And this is located south of the intersection of Apple Tree Road and South Dakota Highway 44. Motion be to approve with stipulations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the Legal and Finance Committee items. Item number 56, please.
Just a question, Mayor.
Yep.
56 and 57 we are going to take back to legal and finance. Do you want me to read them both in?
You can make a motion to continue both of those back, or send those both back to Legal and Finance in one motion.
Okay. On 56 and 57 to continue to the next legal and finance, if I could.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send items 56 and 57 back to Legal and Finance. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 58, please.
58 is approved request to waive city assessments on 710 Blaine Avenue in the amount of, I think that's the wrong amount, but plus interest on the condition that Habitat for Humanity purchases the property. And I yield the floor for discussion, and then maybe Jim could tell us the total amount if he could, please.
Okay, just for discussion, could I have a motion, please? Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval for discussion. Any discussion on that motion? Deb, did you want to go to Jim Preston? Okay, let's go to Jim Preston, and then we'll go to the rest of the lights.
Thank you, Mayor. The total amount on the assessment is $8,564.72.
Deb, anything else?
Yes, I guess I would like to, if we could bring up Scott and maybe Barb Garcia so they can give us some information and maybe get some direction from
Okay, let's go.
some of the council.
There again, did you have a, since we're past the public comment period, do you have a specific question for Scott?
Yes, Scott, did you by chance come up with the solution on, for the city to help you with this?
Yes, well, I hope so.
Scott, if you could just identify yourself for the record, and I do need to limit you somewhat to the question that she asked, so.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The overall project cost comes to about $11,000, and Ms. Esquivel is actually donating the property to the Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity. And I believe that the question of how it could be done, I would leave that to the council to decide how Habitat could be helped to acquire this land.
Okay. Deb, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Well, at Legal and Finance, we actually said that we would take the assessment and pay for it through CIP. No.
No, it was CIP.
I thought it was CIP, and I apologize, but we're told we can't do that.
Let's go to, Deb, if I may.
Sorry.
Jason Green has his light on. Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my opinion that it's inappropriate to use city funds to pay an assessment on behalf of a private party. If the city were to acquire the property, that would be an appropriate use of the city funds. The other aspect to this, and it may have been mooted by the arrangement, is that if an assessment is waived for the current property owner, and especially an assessment where some improvement to the property is done, essentially tax dollars have been used for the benefit of the private property owner, and there's a statute that requires a public election on the private improvement or the improvement of private property with public money. So there are two problems with the request as originally presented.
So can we flip that, and can we have them pay the assessment? We pay for the land with the CDBG grant, and that's kind of what we do with the CDBG grants, if I'm correct, is buy land to put houses on. So maybe we could flip it that way, and that would, I don't know if that needs to be a motion, or that is my motion.
Why don't we do this? Barb Garcia, can you come up? There was some discussion, just so you know, of looking for other funding sources, including community development block grants. Can you give us an update what you found?
Speak very good tonight. CDBG funds can be used to purchase the property, and then that frees up their funds to pay for the assessments on it. And that would be done after the closing, so there wouldn't be any risk of that seller backing out of the deal.
My suggestion to the council is send this back to legal and finance. We can make that adjustment, bring it back in 2 weeks, and that way we have the opportunity to actually take a look at it.
So moved. Second.
Okay. We have a substitute motion, a second, to send this back to legal and finance. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my question to the motion maker is, why are we continuing it for 2 weeks if we have the ability to take it out of CGB funds?
Well, if we still needed, Mr. Mayor, I made the motion. If there's still some questions on there, so that they can work out all the details to present to us, that's fine. If you think we can hammer it out here in the dais, that's fine too.
Mr. Kroger, you still have the floor, sir.
Is there, there's only one motion on the floor right now. I mean, are we on an amendment or?
We are on a substitute motion to take this back to legal and finance and have Barb Garcia come up with the proposal to us to utilize the community development block grants for this. That is the motion on the floor.
Well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to make a substitute motion that we use up to, I know there's going to be probably some interest and stuff by the time this gets closed, but I'm going to make a second substitute motion to approve using CDBG funds up to $9,000 for the purchase of this lot.
Second.
Okay, we have a second substitute motion and a second to use community development block grant money did you have a dollar amount? Up to?
$9,000.
Up to $9,000. Very good. Discussion on that motion. One clarification from Jason, because what I'm thinking is the council actually adopts the community development block grant money in a motion, and the question is you'd have to probably go back and amend that. I'm going to go to Jason Green, and then we'll go to the rest of the lights here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's exactly the gist of the point I was going to make, is that the community development block grants are distributed according to a plan that the council adopts every year. And I think that we can probably work within the adopted plan to get the council's intent accomplished. But I would really appreciate it if we could have 2 weeks to make sure that we've got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, because what we're talking about here are federal dollars, and there are a lot of strings attached to those that you don't have when you're talking about your own funds.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the conversation and the effort to help out affordable housing in the community. I think this was the very reason why we worked so hard during the budget session to put aside $100,000 that's not federal money, but that's citizens, taxpayers' dollars, so that we would have some flexibility to do these sorts of things. I guess my question is the $100,000 that currently sits with CIP, why can't $9,000 of that money be used so that we don't have the federal strings attached?
Okay.
I'd like that, then I'd like the floor back.
Okay. Just a reminder, the motion on the floor, we'll go to your question. The motion on the floor is a continuation motion, so.
No. You made a substitute.
You're right, Ron Kroger.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. And you want to direct that to your question 2?
Probably Barb Garcia. Or Jason Green.
I guess we'll go to Jason Green.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your CIP funds are limited by ordinance on what they can be used for, and acquiring property for private nonprofit is not one of those purposes. So that's the reason that you can't use the CIP funds that were identified for affordable housing for this particular purpose. Those funds could be used to acquire property in the name of the city, and that would be consistent with the CIP use of the money.
Okay, Mr. Chapman, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Jason. I still understand where we're trying to get to. I guess my question, and I really like to speak to the previous motion about the continuation. I'll see what happens with this motion, then if that is still on the floor, I'll address it then.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are obviously some council members that have more information regarding this item than some of the rest of us. I believe that the proper motion is to continue for 2 weeks to get some information. I agree with the city attorney and I agree with the mayor. I would like to hear more about it, and you've hit me cold. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm a little confused on this because the community block grant, I thought, was, as Jason spoke, in order to use that, it had to be the city acquiring the property. Now we're saying the same way to use the CIP money, the $100,000, the cities to acquire the property. And so that kind of makes it very difficult for this council to help get affordable land when it comes available. So I'm just kind of confused. I'll support going back, continuing it for 2 weeks. So thanks.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is a second substitute motion to actually approve tonight using up to $9,000 of community development block grant money. That is the substitute motion, second substitute motion on the floor. We'll go to Bob Hurlbut and then back to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. We don't always agree with the advice of our city attorney, and we don't always take it, but I think this is a good example of one where we can. Yeah. I think there's clearly a will to get this moved forward, and I think we need to make sure we get it done in a proper fashion, and I think that it's a legitimate concern, and I don't frankly see why 2 weeks really hurts that process. So I will vote to continue.
Okay. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Mayor, to save a lot of discussion, there's certainly a lot of questions up here, so if I may, I would like to withdraw my second substitute motion.
Okay. Is there any objection to withdraw the second substitute motion? If not, the chair will assume that is withdrawn. We are back to the substitute motion, which is to send back to the Legal and Finance Committee and have a report by Barb Garcia utilizing community development block grant money. With that, discussion on that motion, Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I surely could support the motion on the floor. I'm just wondering, is 2 weeks enough time for the property to be, it seemed like the property was going to be given or deeded or somehow donated to Habitat. Is that enough time for that part of the process to take place so that when it's back in front of Legal and Finance, that those transactions have already taken place so that when we get it, we can actually take action and not have to wait? And that's a question for Scott.
Can you nod? Yes, okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
On the continuation motion, I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do in 2 weeks that's any different than we can have Barb come do her presentation now on it and tell us what's up. She'll do the same presentation at Legal and Finance and she'll bring it back here with the same presentation. So if we need that much information, it sounds pretty crazy to me, but I can support the motion, but again, I think we could do the presentation now and we could find out the information where we need to go. So I don't know if anybody cares about that, but okay, I'll leave it alone.
Okay, motion on the floor is a substitute motion to send back to Legal and Finance and have Barb Garcia give a report on the ability to use community development block grants. Any further discussion? On the continuation motion, Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure we're being very efficient here, and I agree with what Alderwoman Hadcock is saying. I'm going to offer a substitute motion to allow for a 5-minute presentation on this item from the folks that are here and have the information.
We have a second substitute motion and a second. Barb, let me ask the obvious question. Barb, do you have any information where you can present it tonight? Okay. Motion on the floor is a second substitute motion to allow up to 5 minutes for a presentation. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Barb.
We currently have approximately $109,000 in CDBG funds that were set aside for fiscal year '08 that were not allocated to a specific activity. They were set aside for affordable housing. So there is money set aside, and all that we would need to do to be able to use them in this way is for council to say in a motion that they wish to take X amount of dollars from the fiscal year '08 affordable housing money to be used for this land purchase. I would point out that there would be an issue if the property is transferred. We are setting aside money to purchase the lot. If we allow them to go ahead and purchase or have the property transferred prior to this, we would not be able to help them. There has to be an environmental review conducted before that transfer can take place. So what we would just like to do is make it a purchase. All of the other issues would be taken care of at the closing of that property. But all that would be required for you to allow the money to be used is to make a motion tonight with the council or at another meeting that you wish to take X dollars out of that fund to be used for a purchase for Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, we do have a light on from Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would strongly encourage the council to continue this for 2 weeks so I can put a written resolution together. So we will have a clear paper trail that the council actually approved the transfer of these funds. We won't have to rely on digging back through council minutes in order to find that data. For federal audit purposes, I think that's really the prudent course. And we will have that ready for you next Legal and Finance if that's your action.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson. Now, just for clarification, I just want to make sure everybody knows where we're at. There was a motion to allow the presentation. That still means that there is a motion on the floor, and that is the the substitute motion to continue this back to Legal and Finance. So so everyone knows, if there's a desire to do something different than that, there is room to make the motion. So with that, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
So, Mr. Mayor, the appropriate discussion at this point is continuing this item back to Legal and Finance. I will support that. I think it's unwise to. I will take the direction of Jason and make sure that there is a clear paper trail. It certainly solves some of the problems I had concerning this issue. So I will not be in support. Oh, excuse me. I will be in support of the motion to continue this back to Legal and Finance.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in light of what our city attorney has said, and it seems where the council is heading with a continuation, then it's in the best interest then of Habitat not to have this property deeded over to them until we have taken some sort of action. Thank you.
Very good. Motion on the floor is a substitute motion to continue this item to the Legal and Finance. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for Scott. Does Habitat have a purchase agreement or anything to hold this piece of property until we get what we need accomplished? We do? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Motion on the floor is a substitute motion to send this back to Legal and Finance and have Barb actually make another presentation at Legal and Finance. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 59, please.
59 is approve the reallocation of $1,610,000 of the Elk Vale Road Lift Station funding to the Elk Vale Road Sanitary Sewer Main Project Phase 1 and Phase 2 with the connection fees as identified repayment source from the .16 Utility Fund Oversight Committee. Move approval.
We have a motion second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 60, please.
Number 60 is approve the estimated 483,000 connection fee shortfall being funded from the wastewater enterprise fund in 5 annual payments of the 60,000 beginning in 2009 through 2013 and a final payment of 183,000 in 2014 with an overpayment to be refunded to the wastewater enterprise fund at the end of the project. Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a loan, correct, from the enterprise fund?
Let's go to Jim Preston, our city finance officer. I believe you can answer that. Mr. Preston.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. If I understand the question, this is essentially a loan. I don't know if you essentially would say it was a loan. I think what we're attempting to do is typically we are not able to collect 100% of the connection fees when we establish these, and so we're wanting to collect as close to 100% as we can to reimburse the .16 fund. So that is why the .16 fund committee proposed acquiring that 30% through the rates. Is that essentially it, Mr. Ellis? Okay.
Alderman Quaker, sir, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Jim, for clarification purposes, then, if the connection fees start coming in, then the wastewater enterprise fund will only be funding the difference, right? If the connection fees start coming in from the development, we're not going to still be doing the 5 annual payments of 60,000. We will be subtracting out whatever comes in. Is that correct?
Mr. Preston.
I think what the intent is to get that 30%, which is the $483,000, correct? To get that through the utility rates. So I think that is the intent of what we're proposing here, is to acquire those funds and place those in the .16 fund.
Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So if I understand this, then this is not a loan. This is a grant or a reduction of available funds from the sewer enterprise fund and a transfer to the .16 fund permanently. Is that correct?
Mr. Preston.
That's my understanding. That is correct. Disagree.
So from a policy standpoint, then how do we? Is there any way that we could structure this so that the enterprise fund would need to be repaid other than through rates? Is there any other way?
Mr. Ellis.
The intent of this motion was to reimburse the .16 to 100% of the cost of the $1.6 million. Understanding that only 70% of most connection fees are returned through that connection fee over the course of time, the committee decided that it would be appropriate for the 30% that would not be captured through connection fee to be paid from the utility fund to the .16. Now in time, if it turns out we get 80% back in connection fees, that 10% difference would go back to the enterprise fund.
So it will go back?
Yes.
Okay, and that's part of this, the intent of this motion and resolution?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. We have a number of lights here. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock. The motion on the floor is for approval.
My question is kind of where Sam's going. On 70% connection fee, what if you don't get 70%? Because, go ahead, I'll let you answer that. What if there's a shortfall? Who covers that?
Mr. Ellis.
70% is a fair estimate of what we would get for a developing area. This is a developing area, so you don't have to contend with people that will be connecting that have large tracts of land that already exist. So in my opinion, we will see the 70% here. The .16, you will remember, tries to recapture as much as is practical back to the .16 fund. We have approved, or the council has approved, some funding of projects that does not receive back 100% of the funding. So that may be the case here, but I don't believe so.
Okay, Deb, you still have the floor, ma'am.
I guess because this is a developing area, that makes sense. But from seeing connection fees from before and looking up connection fees from before, I wasn't in agreement with that, only because what I've seen coming back. But you made a very good argument. That is a developing area, so that makes a difference. But one more question, if I could, Mr. Ellis, Mayor. Isn't that area around there, is connection fees already being charged for that area already?
Mr. Ellis?
I don't know exactly if there are or not. If there are, it would be very minimal because there haven't been a lot of sewer improvements that have been made. This is a substantial sewer improvement, and it's the only one in the area.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. And what you're doing with this is a very positive for that sewer line, so I'm in agreement. Thank you, Robert, for those answers.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree with Deb. This is a positive project. I made the motion at .16 and probably confused a few people, but through explanation is the .16 is a revolving loan fund used to advance infrastructure. In this case, the .16 will fund that infrastructure and it will be paid back in two ways. One is by connection fees and the other is by the utility fund itself. Now remember that the utility fund is the one really charged with the city's portion of the infrastructure. So therefore, it's fair to have the enterprise fund repay .16. And remember, our goal is to recover as close to 100% plus interest in most projects. So this retains a revolving loan fund. By structuring it this way, it does exactly that. And I think this is a good piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Karen Olson. Oops.
Thank you. I'm just in support of the motion because I think it does the two things which we need, which is continuing the revolving fund solvency, and it's coming appropriately from the fee from the fund, in which is most affected by this construction. Thank you.
Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
I think we're doing a couple of things here. One is the project itself, and then I think the second is that we're creating some policy almost on the fly. I understand the council's wishes when we created the .16 was to, as much as possible, to reimburse that fund. I don't think that spirit of that, the intent of that, was to reimburse that fund by taking money from other city entities to then reimburse the fund. It was to reimburse the fund from outside of the city. I could support it, but I don't think that this is a good practice. What we're doing is playing a game, I think, a little bit by saying that we're going to reimburse this money from some other money within the city. So is the sewer enterprise fund less important than the .16? The .16 will get reimbursed on a .16 basis every time sales tax dollars get in. I could support the motion on the floor. I don't necessarily like the way that it's structured, but I will support the motion on the floor.
Very good. Further discussion. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 60, please. I'm sorry, 61, under Public Works Committee items.
Bid, oh, jeez. Bid award for Rapid City Bus Storage Facility Phase 2 project. And I'd move approval with a funding source of CIP and to look at 2012 for repayment to CIP.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Mr. Pressman, do you have anything to add?
Recommendation for Gusterson Builders, $787,750.
Okay, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you. This project is certainly a worthy project, and I want to state that right off the bat. What I would like to say is that relating to using 2012 as a funding source for this, I'm concerned because I remember that a few years ago we adjusted the revenue projections for 2012 to, I believe, 4.5%. I'm not sure what our revenue stream is looking like. You know, if we're going to meet that this year, and I guess I would just encourage the council overall to not look at the monies available in 2012 as a surplus. I don't think it is a surplus. It could be seen as a cushion for existing projects, but we need to be very careful about not assuming that we have extra money to spend. I would like to ask you, Jim, if you could let us know from your perspective what you're seeing in terms of the revenue, the revenue stream in terms of the 4.5% that we've budgeted for 2012.
Okay, do you have that information, Mr. Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a specific response to where our sales tax are for the 2012, but I can tell you that we are just through April, and I would caution anybody to make any type of decision based on where our sales tax is at this time of the year. And you know, I can tell you through April we are, you know, above the 4.5%, but again, I would not make a decision based on where we're at in April.
Okay, Mr. Quaker.
That's a fair answer.
You still have the floor, sir. Okay. For clarification, who was the motion maker? Lloyd, were you the motion maker? Was the motion for the base bid, or let's go to Mr. Preston. What are you recommending that we approve? Base plus?
Thank you, Mayor. Staff is recommending accepting the base bid of $442,500 plus alternates 1 through 4 for a total of $787,750.
1 through 4 or 1 and 4?
1 through 4.
Okay, so we would be accepting the base bid plus all the alternates, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Motion or discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion on the floor, and I think just some clarification is just to identify the CIP reserves as a funding source. We can always change that funding source when it's time to actually make payment. I understand Sam's concerns about dipping into 2012, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't say that part of the conversation that we had at our 2012 annual meeting the other day identified not future projections of 2012, but based on some of the projects that came in well under the dollar amount. There's an additional $596,000 in 2012 for 2008, and if that money will be replaced by that once we finish that annual 2012 work, I think that's the intent and the spirit of the motion, to replace those CIP reserves with that dollar amount that we know exists for 2008. So it's not dipping into future 2012, just as a point of clarification.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor, just to remind everybody, motion on the floor is for approval of the base bid plus the alternates 1 through 4 for a total amount of, double check me here, Mr. Preston, $501,351.90. No?
No, sir. 700.
Whoop, I had that number from this morning. Read me the number.
$787,750.
And no pennies.
No pennies.
$787,750.
Correct.
Very good. Discussion on that motion. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm probably a little confused here because when we had our 2012 meeting here last week, I thought the discussion was the base bid plus alternate 1 and 4. I'm really confused, but I understand. I remember this now distinctly.
Very good. Let's move. Let's Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if it's a Ron thing tonight or what, but I'm a little bit confused here because is there money already, some of the 2012 money already set aside for this project?
Let's go to Mr. Preston. The funding source for this is CIP. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. I think if I'm answering the correct question, the initial project, there was $2012 used for this $2 million when we purchased the building. We also had federal dollars involved with this through the rapid transit system. And so that money, we have sufficient money on hand between that and the federal dollars to do the base bid. What we do not have is the additional $280,000 to do the finished remodeling work for the police evidence portion and the traffic portion.
So my question is, we're looking at $280,000, not $780,000.
Mr. Preston.
What we're asking is for the approval of the bid with the understanding that we need additional $280,000 for the total of $787,750 to do this project. That has not been identified. We have to have identified funding source to approve this bid.
Ron, you still have the floor, sir.
I think you answered my question. We're looking for an additional $280,000 that's not identified. That's where I got confused.
Yep.
No, I understand. Thank you.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just clarification, I believe the motion maker did state 2012 in the motion. And then I've heard others say that it's CIP. I would like to have a clarification of, what the identified source is.
Very good. Mr. LaCroix.
It is identified as CIP.
Okay.
Reserve.
Okay. Everyone clear on the motion?
Yeah, just leave it at that.
The motion on the floor is for approval of the base bid plus alternates 1 through 4 for a total amount of $787,750 with an identified funding source of CIP. Yep, of $280,000. Any further discussion on that motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are on to item number, let's see. We are on to item number 62 in bids. Mr. Preston, I see our board isn't working, so go ahead.
You're not working on
We're not
that?
working here. Go ahead and just read them in, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to turn this lights back on then, if you can't see that up there, up above. The first bid is for the Roosevelt Park Improvements Phase 3 project. We received one bid from RCS Constructions, and the bids for 4 alternates to save time. Staff is recommending we take this to Legal and Finance for recommendation.
We have a, we have a, what is it, one of those nights, just one of those nights, isn't it? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to take this back to Legal and Finance. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 63, please.
Follow Skull Construction, base bid $934,181. Alternate 1, $6,844. Alternate 2, $19,675. The second bid, Heavy Constructors, base bid $992,700. Alternate 1, $9,000. Alternate 2, $30,000. Third bid, Corner Construction Corporation, base bid of $886,000. Alternate 1, $10,200. Alternate 2, $19,000. Fourth bid, Sequel Construction Incorporated, base bid of $798,450 with alternate 1 of $7,680 and alternate 2, $19,575. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Sequel Construction Incorporated, the base bid plus the 2 alternates for a total of $825,705.
Okay, we have a motion second for approval of an awarding of the bid to Seco Construction for the base bid plus the 2 alternates for a total amount of $825,705. Everyone clear on the motion? Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 64, please.
Is the 2008 street rehabilitation, various location. We received 3 bids as follows. Simon Contractors of South Dakota Incorporated, $524,164. Hills Materials Company, $447,208.76. And J&J Asphalt Company, $442,652.90. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from J&J Asphalt Company in an amount of $442,652.90.
We have a motion second for approval and the award to J&J Asphalt Company for a dollar amount of $442,652.90. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 65, please.
Item number 65 is for Hot Mix Asphaltic concrete for various city departments. We received 2 bids. First bid from Hills Material Company in amount of $134,563. Second bid from Simon Contractors of South Dakota Incorporated, $137,870. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Hills Materials Company in the amount of $134,563.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid to Hills for $134,563. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item number 66, please.
Item number 66 is limestone gravel for various departments. We received 2 bids. Hills Materials Company in the amount of $70,235, and Pete Lean and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $62,824.75. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Pete Lean and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $62,824.75.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to award the bid to Pete Lean and Sons for a total dollar amount $62,824.75. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Item 67, please.
Item number 67 is a ready mix concrete for various departments. Staff received 2 bids. First bid, Hills Materials Company, amount of $61,575. And the second bid from Birdsall Sand and Gravel, amount of $63,068.75. Staff is recommending accepting the bid from Birdsall Sand and Gravel, amount of $63,068.75.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to award to Birdsall for total dollar amount of $63,068.75. Any discussion on that motion? Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. My electronic copy says Hills Materials is $61,575. Is that incorrect?
You are correct, sir. I'm sorry. The staff is recommending accepting that bid for $61,575.
Substitute motion to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a substitute motion and a second to accept the bid from Hills Material, correct?
Yes, sir.
And read me the dollar amount again.
$61,575.
For a total dollar amount of $61,575. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Tom Johnson just want to make sure you're awake.
I'm glad he's paying attention.
Nice, very nice catch. Thank you. That would have been interesting considering we would not have awarded that to the lowest responsible bidder. So thank you, Tom. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I think you owe Alderman Johnson a chai tea or something there.
I'm sure I do.
Yeah. Item number 68.
Right now. The next item is the portable chemical toilet facilities for various departments. We received 2 bids. First bid from A1 Portables Incorporated, $479. Second one is Kiefer Sanitation, $569.18. Staff is recommending that we continue this to the next Public Works Committee meeting for recommendation.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this item to the next Legal and Finance Committee. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 69, please.
Item number 69 is the transportation natural gas for the energy plant. We received 1 bid. That's from the Rainbow Gas Company, the Colorado Interstate Gas Index of 30 cents per million BTU, plus the Williston Basin Interstate's current actual full transportation rate of $30.31298. It's 31.298 cents per million BTU, which it's separated, but it's all 1 bid.
And your recommendation?
So you want me to put that we accept that bid. I can put this one up if you'd like.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to accept the bid from Rainbow what?
Rainbow Gas Company plus Williston Basin Interstate Transportation Rate.
Okay, very good. If I'm clear on the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion passes. We are on to item number 70.
Thank you.
Which is an update from the billing system. Alderman Quaker, I'll ask if it's all right. I think Robert Ellis can you give us a quick update? And then we'll go to Alderman Quaker will have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Late last week, we had done a conversion of our old utility billing software, which is about 25 years old. It's an old Hewlett-Packard system that's no longer supported. We were converting some of that old data over to our new software package that we have, and there was a glitch that was uncovered. It did unfortunately send out 2,000 notices notifying people that they were delinquent in payment, and in fact they were not. Once we caught that error, we quickly issued a news release stating that there was a glitch, that we would be sending out apology letters, that there were going to be no terminations of anybody's water for the month of May. Now, some of those disconnection notices or those delinquency notices were indeed correct, but a vast majority were not of those 2,000. So since then, we've issued a series of news releases explaining the incident, how it happened, why it happened, and what we're doing to correct it. We have fixed the software glitch. It will not happen in the future. We have a person that we are having do a visual inspection of every notice that goes out, comparing it with our database just to make sure that it is correct. We have not found any more of these glitches. And we did send out a letter that with the recent snow event should have hit those 2,000 customers on Saturday, essentially explaining that Mayor Hanks has determined that there will be no terminations for the month of May or disconnections, and that we were sorry for the miscommunication and that we have fixed it. So from all intents and purposes, we believe that the glitch has been corrected. It was unfortunate that it wasn't caught earlier, but with the mass billing, sometimes it's difficult to catch every one of those. We do feel confident now. We've gone through a full billing cycle of all of our customers, so we hope and pray that this will be the only glitch that we uncover.
Very good. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate the update, Robert. My understanding is that this software was purchased in the fall of 2006, I believe, for approximately $320,000, and there appear to have been issues since the beginning with how the vendor has handled the installation, and I don't think the vendors here tonight defend themselves, so I'm not going to throw anything at them, but I'm just wondering, do they bear any responsibility in terms of the cost of what's happened here with this erroneous billing being sent out?
Mr. Ellis.
We still are withholding about $75,000 worth of the final payment from them, and we want to be fairly confident that this will not happen again. So we're going to hold on to that $75,000 until we're extremely confident in the software, and that may be a discussion point when we do look at releasing any final payments.
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be appropriate to ask the city attorney to look into that part of it, or is that something I'm already assuming is being looked into, whether we can deduct the cost of the notices and everything from that remaining $75,000? Is that an appropriate discussion?
Jason? Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can certainly look at it. I can tell you that most software licenses of this type include specific disclaimers for losses of this nature, but I would be happy to look at it and make a report to the council if you'd like.
Is a motion necessary, Mayor?
No. Well, I think Mr. Ellis in his discussions along with John Wagner will certainly bring that up on your behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bob Hurlbut.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think Alderman Quaker makes a good point. And I think it was a little long in the coming, but we're finally getting it implemented. And I just want to thank the mayor and Mr. Ellis and all those involved in the very prompt response to what could have become a PR disaster, and instead I think was handled very effectively. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the software company should be happy to refund the postage and the amount. I mean, they have a reputation that might not go into their contract, but certainly goes beyond. I had a number of constituents talk to me about their delinquent tax bill, and I told them I had not received one. I just stayed tonight. I noticed there was a notice to me on the dais here tonight that I'm delinquent. No, it's just a copy of the letter, but at least I can tell them now I did get a copy. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. I don't believe this takes any action, any further discussion. If not, we will move on. Robert, thank you for the report. We were on to item number 71, which is the Vision 2012 update. And Robert, you're going to give us that update?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
The The Vision 2012 program, there's been really no new activity since the Vision 2012 committee met just a few weeks ago. We have gone through the process of updating, trying to contact all of the stakeholders in the Vision 2012 projects, and we've updated not only the cost of their project, tried to determine where they're at, and we've also included the O&M cost. That'll all be found on the city's webpage where we do list the 2012 project report. As of today, we are looking at about $38,788.95 in committed funds from 2012, and there is a total of $59,498,500 in approved funds. So there is quite a bit of funds out there that have not been committed. They will be coming in future years, but there is that approval of those projects. So no, there are no new projects to report on for the Vision 2012 program.
Just for clarification, you said they weren't committed. They're actually committed, they're just not spent.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't want people to have the wrong impression that we have millions of dollars of uncommitted 2012 money. Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Those projects are not in contract, I should say.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank Robert Ellis and his organization to put in that city's net O&M monies that we've been asking, and it's helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, the chair would look for a motion just to acknowledge the Vision 2012 update.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the sign code appeals. I believe, Deb, you need to read those in, please. And I think, where's Marcia? 72, 73, are we expecting those to be continued or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
There you go.
One motion. Deb?
72 and 73 continue till June 2nd at the applicant's request.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second to continue both these items to the June 2nd City Council meeting. Any discussion on that motion, items 72 and 73? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to the public hearing items for items 74 through 123. The chair will look for a motion to open public hearing for items 74 through, 123.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. In discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are in the open public comment period. We do have a couple speaker request forms. Tanya is a Tordson. Okay. Item number 94. If you could, there again, just identify yourself. Just a reminder there again, we do time these. We have 3 minutes if you just watch the lights.
Okay.
And Tanya, just identify yourself, please.
Tanya Tordson with Dream Design. I'm the project engineer for Copperfield Vistas. And on item number 94, the staff is recommending that that be continued. We're just asking that you would take a look at that tonight and possibly approve that. We submitted a few items to city staff after they had started preparing the agenda, so they had to recommend that that be continued. So I believe at this time that we have everything submitted, and you can check with staff to see if they have approved of everything. So we're just asking that you would take a look at it. The developers would like to proceed with final plat if preliminary plat can go through tonight.
Thank you. We'll bring that up. Next, we also have a speaker request form from a Butch McKinney on 2350 Homestead on item 116. And there again, sir, if you could just, I just read your name, but if you could just identify yourself for the record. And we're talking on item 116.
Butch McKinney. In regards to that annexation, I probably never heard the word confused so much in a 2-hour period in my life, except when I was here tonight. Are you sure you want to take us in out there? You got enough problems, it looks like. You don't need us. I wish somebody would have discussed a little bit more of this before I got up here, but I just want to know what our rights is to, I know what a hostile takeover is in the stock market, but I don't understand what it is here. My neighbors don't think there's a chance that we got no choice. We voted on, I think there was a vote for Cabela's. I know Walmart's been pushed around trying to start a store. We just want to be left alone out there and don't look like it's going to happen. What is our rights? Because I don't know. I didn't hire an attorney to find out what our rights is to stay the way we are.
Sure. This is actually the public comment period. We'll let you continue on, and we can try and address that once we get to the item, but we don't.
Can I come back up after you discuss it a little bit more then?
Only if someone asks you a question. But
Okay.
I think it's well noted. I think someone may ask that question.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we also have a speaker request form from Donna Olson at 3579 Reservoir Road on item 116. And there again, Mrs. Olson, if you could just identify yourself for the record.
Donna Olson, and we are against the...
Could you do me a favor? Could you pull that mic down towards
This
you?
one?
There you go. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Thank you. Anyway, we are against annexation on North Valley Drive. And I don't know just what you folks can offer us that we don't already have, and that what we would... well, we have a business out there, so we would still live in the county. We still could not vote, even though you would take us into the city. We still wouldn't have no say-so. And right now, the county's really given us, well, very good services. And we have good law services. We have good water and utilities, so we really don't have no reason not to stay with the county. And we would appreciate if you folks would take that in consideration, and also the fact that we could not vote in the city and have a say-so, but we still would have to comply with all your rules. Thank you. I hope you consider it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Olson. We also have a speaker request form from a Travis, I believe it's Jones. Looks like 5735 Southside Road, it looks like. Is that correct? Yeah. And there again, Mr. Jones, if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Travis Jones. I'm against the annexation because, you know, I don't know what benefit that we would get from being annexed into the city. Our county takes care of us. Most of us, my family and me, we've lived in the valley all our life. We've had no problems. I just don't know what benefit it would be to us as residents to be annexed into the city. And that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I don't see any additional speaker request forms. Are there any other folks that would like to speak on any of the items? Let's make sure we get it right here. Items 74 through 123. Yep, you certainly can, ma'am. I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to speak. And ma'am, if you could just identify yourself and give us your address so we
Sure.
have that for public record.
My name's Tina Meyer, and I reside at 1421 Valley Drive.
Thank you,
the
ma'am.
old North Valley Drive. Anyhow, about the annexation, as a few others have mentioned, I don't see any benefits that we will reap that we aren't already getting through the county now. I do believe that growth is necessary and that development, you know, is very important. However, without the right plans, you know, this is going to spell you know, it's just going to be bad news. I don't know that if the city has done all the research that they need to do to be able to weigh out the cost of, say, the sheriff versus the county, the Pennington County Sheriff versus city. I know the sheriff goes up and down my road, I don't know, numerous times a day. Also, too, just from what I've studied in the past on a few of the things that were going on, Copperfield Vista residents, they pay 35% more for water now than what they were before they voluntarily annexed into the city. That problem was supposed to be addressed. This is something I read in the paper from, 2003. Rapid St. Gerald City looks at Copperville's utility rates anyhow, I've done a lot of studying on this, and 35%, that's a lot for our water to go up, and then we won't even have a choice on switching into city water. We have to stay with the Rapid Valley Sanitary District, and we're unable to switch. What benefit is it for us to go? You know, I mean, it's going to cost us more money. It's going to cost us more in taxes. Also, according to a few people in the Copperfield subdivision, they very seldom see police patrol their area. Like I said, we have sheriff up and down our street constantly. I don't know if the need's greater in my area or if it's, you know, which very well may be, but nevertheless, they don't have it, we do. Everything works fine the way it is for us. What I would maybe suggest, in addition to maybe a little bit more study on the amount of money that it's going to cost the city to annex us versus where we're paying the county now. I mean, I know that that's going to generate more revenue, more tax revenue with the businesses there, but why don't you just consider taking the, you know, Highway 44 businesses and annexing that area if you're going to annex anything for more money, rather than to do the residents, you know, like on my street, for instance, or any of these others, where businesses aren't even on the, you know, in the area. I just don't understand that. And I know that nobody here is going to give me that answer, but I do want to make the point that my water's going to go up. You guys are probably going to be spending more money. I think that more study needs to be done. And I see the red light, so I guess that's my time. So, anyway.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Any additional comments? If not, we will move on, continue, and when I say move on, we'll move on to the items on the calendar. We're on to items 74 through 110, which is the continued public hearing consent items. And the chair would ask you if any of the items to be removed. Let's go to Marcia Elkins.
Please.
Sure, 94, I could have guessed. Let's go to Ron Weifenbach. Oh, you got it, very good, thank you. Any additional? We're dealing with items 74 through 110. So far, we've had item 94 pulled. If not, the chair would look for a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 74 through 110, with the exception of item number 94.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 94, please. Lloyd, could you read that in, please?
Is there a request by DDI International for preliminary plot on lots 5 through 4. This is located west of Concourse Drive and at the northern terminus of Summerfield Drive and Copperfield Drive. And I'd move for approval.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Marcia Elkins.
I'm required to inform you that the information was not submitted by Wednesday at 4 p.m. It was received today, and staff did review it late this afternoon. And if you wish to, you can approve the item with stipulations.
Okay, very good. Motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to the end of the continued public hearing consent item calendar. Chair would look for a motion to close the public hearing on items 74 through 123. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for items 74 through 123. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We are on to these, let's see, consent public hearing items 111 through 115. Chair would ask if any of those are going to be removed. Item 111 through 115. Seeing none, I guess the chair will ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar item 111 through 115, which are our alcohol licenses. We have a motion and a second for approval of items 111 through 115 on the consent calendar. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That takes us to the end of the consent public hearing calendar. We are on to the non-consent public hearing items. Item 116. And Deb, I believe could you read that in for me?
116 is a request by City of Rapid City to consider an application for a resolution of intent to annex located north and south of South Dakota Highway 44 and east and west of Valley Drive, and I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Just for clarification, and I think everybody, this is a resolution of intent for annexation. This starts the process, but there will be, I believe, at least 4 opportunities, 2 at Legal and Finance and 2 at City Council. Is that correct? Or do we just have 1? 1 each, okay. Plus Planning Commission? Okay, they've already dealt with it, okay. So there will be 2 public hearings held in front of this council again. This is strictly to pass a resolution of intent, and then that will be coming back in front of the City Council through Legal and Finance. With that, and there again, just please keep in mind, this is a resolution of intent of annexation. Let's go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask a question and maybe pose it to you, Mr. Mayor, that if these people are annexed in the city, that gives them the right to vote in the city. Is that correct?
Well, my answer would be yes, but I'll go to Jason Green. I can't imagine why it wouldn't, unless they're a convicted felon or something.
Anyone who's eligible to register to vote will be eligible to vote in the city upon annexation. If the resolution for annexation were to be referred to a public vote, state statute establishes a special election precinct in the proposed annexation area. So the city of Rapid City, as it existed prior to the annexation, plus the proposed annexation area, registered voters would be eligible to vote in a referendum if that came to pass. So absolutely, anyone who is eligible to register to vote would be able to vote in the city regardless of the annexation.
Okay, Mr. Weifenbach,
Thank
you
you.
have the floor, sir. Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, so if it isn't, please stop me. But maybe there is maybe we can quell some of these concerns of the people if we can very briefly talk what the benefits are, for one. And the second one is there was a serious, in my opinion, thought about the water rates, and is that the case? And if we can address some of these issues, maybe we can help these people with how they're going to conduct themselves later on. So it'll give them a little bit more information, and the people in the community can see this as well. So if this is appropriate, if we could ask those or address those 2, that would be, I'd appreciate it.
I'll be glad to answer the water rate question. Some of you know Charlene Mitchell in our office. She was one of the original individuals involved with the Copperfield annexation and was the people that held petitions. It's very clear from our records and from visiting with her that it was made clear to the individuals who lived in Copperfield that they would continue to be served by Rapid Valley Water and Sewer District. Any increase in those water rates really are the result of changes in the Rapid Valley Water and Sanitary District rates, and they're not tied to annexation. Similarly, in this area, if these residents are served by Rapid Valley Sanitary District, they will continue to be served by them, and that board will decide what the rates are, not the City of Rapid City. There are numerous residents within the City of Rapid City who are served by other water and sanitary districts or companies, so this is not an unusual situation. I'll let Karen address the issue of the advantages.
Okay, Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number 1 advantage, they get to vote for you folks, at least the mayor and their alderperson, whoever that may be. We will provide all the same benefits to those folks in the annexation area that we do to the city residents currently, which would mean our city fire and police protection. In some areas, some places, they do have lower interest rates based on the fact that they belong with the Rapid City Fire Department instead of a volunteer fire department. That would be an individual thing then, and they'd have to check that, to make sure. We take care of all their streets and maintenance of the streets that are public streets, including lighting. We would do all the snow plowing and repair of those public streets. They can get our city sanitary trash removal picked up if that's what they request. We won't go out there and automatically do it, but if they petition to have the city do that, we will do that instead of their private haulers, and sometimes that is a cheaper rate. If they're in the agricultural land, that property's taxes are reduced for ag land. The rest of the property taxes will probably go up about 3 to 4% or a little higher than that for owner-occupied, right in that time frame. Currently they use all of our city services Now, they go to our civic center, they do those kinds of things. Some of the things that they do for recreation are, or have been and are cheaper. I think the swimming pool has a rate that's cheaper, or the ice skating places have a little cheaper rate. So there are some benefits.
Okay. Let's go back to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to take a few moments, and I thank the mayor for allowing me to do this, just so that you can get appreciation for what are some of the dynamics here. You've got some of the benefits of coming into the city, and then there were some questions on the water rates that we really don't have any control over. It's what will happen with the organization that you belong to. And the property, the actual property taxes you alluded to, it may go up from the city perspective, but won't it go down from the county? I mean, if you got, how is that working? Do you know?
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the city levies will go on and the county levies will come off, but that'll indicate a slight change in the taxes, and I can give you what that is.
No, that's all right. You already mentioned it was about a 3% increase.
It's 3.7% for non-ag, and the owner-occupied will go up 4.7 and 4.8%, depending on where they are.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and explaining this, and I hope this helped you in the audience, some of the things that you may be looking at. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go to Jason Green, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a request for me to clarify one aspect of my comments about voting. In order to vote in any election anywhere, you have to reside in the area. So for individuals who own businesses in the annexation area but do not reside either in the annexation area or in the city of Rapid City, they would not be eligible to vote in either city elections or in the annexation election. That's the same rule that would apply to anyone else who owned a business in Rapid City but lived outside the city limits.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. In reading the report, there are approximately 500 acres and 90 properties, or 75 individual property owners involved. And I think it would be very appropriate to do an open house. I'm assuming that one's already being planned in that neighborhood.
I think that.
And go ahead.
Let's go to Karen Bohm. I believe that's already occurred.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we did have an open house in January for all those folks, and we invited everyone to come to that. We did have quite a few people there and did ask some questions, and we followed up with some calls to some people also.
Okay. Alderman Quaker, you still have the floor, sir.
And I'm aware of that, but as the weather is now nicer and people are paying more attention to this issue, and that was shortly after the holidays, I think that it would be appropriate to hold another hearing before this comes back for final reading. That would be my recommendation, that we look at doing that.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the water rates, to be very clear on that. If your provider's Rapid Valley Water and Sewer, it continues to be. Your rates do not go up because you're annexed in the city of Rapid City. I think that somebody talked about a 35% increase. The other thing I want to tell you is that the good news is that the city of Rapid City, prior to the Rapid Valley Water and Sanitary Sewer District coming online with the treatment center, we did provide your water for a number of years. So you actually have had a benefit from the city for quite a period of time. Essentially what Rapid Valley Water and Sanitary Sewer District is they were the middlemen. We delivered the water, they did a markup, and they sold it to you. So for quite some time you've received a benefit. The other thing I want to say is that the importance to the city of Rapid City, one of the things is you're entirely surrounded by the city of Rapid City. And if the city of Rapid City is going to grow to the east, we need to not violate state laws as we annex. And my understanding from the city attorney is that if we do not annex your area, it puts us in a bad position to annex further to the east. In other words, you become a roadblock for the growth of our community. And I think that's fairly important for this community to make certain that we continue to grow. Our airport is obviously important to us. We have another community that's not far from us, Box Elder, that annexes as well. We want to make certain that our airport is safe and continues to be safe years in advance. So we would like to have control of that airport. I believe there's a strong community of interest between your community and our community. Most of you live and work in or around a Rapid City. The economy certainly benefits all of us. So I think it's important that we do grow as a community, that we do continue to have the right, I guess, to go to the east. As it stands, I believe that if we do not, it would become a roadblock. And regarding the issue of just annexing the businesses, that was one of the ideas that I floated, and I was told essentially that it could be considered as a flagpole annexation. Some of you remember that we did have annexed out to the airport. We had to de-annex because of a flagpole annexation. So it is a very serious issue to the community. And again, I will tell you that I believe we have a community of interest. I believe it benefits you, and I also believe it benefits the city of Rapid City. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion passes with 1 no from Alderman Deb Hadcock. Thank you, everyone. Item 117, please.
Yes. 117 is a request by Spurley Consulting, Inc. for Paul Renke for a variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install water and sewer service lines per chapter 16.16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is located on Quartz Canyon Lane. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 118, please.
This is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Huey Clemens for variance to subdivision regulations to waive requirements to install curb, gutter, street, light, conduit, water, sewer, and to allow asphalt millings in lieu of paving, and to reduce the pavement width from 24 to 20 feet as per Chapter 16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is located south intersection of Apple Tree Road and South Dakota East Highway 44. And motion be to approve in part and deny in part as per the applicant's request. Our
Second.
planning commission's
Second.
request.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve in part and deny in part per the recommendations from the Planning Commission. A discussion on that motion. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As is important as our city grows and we are looking at waiving the rights for curb, gutter, and I'm assuming sidewalks. Maybe that means it is not. I'm just like a little exclamation on it, so.
Okay, let's go. Is Mr. Dominic going to carry it? Okay. Mr. Dominic, could you recap what's being approved and what's being denied?
I need to get one piece of paper. You're asking to approve the variance to the subdivision regulation to waive the requirement to install street light conduit, water and sewer along the access easements, to deny the variance to the subdivision regulations to waive the requirement to install pavement, and to reduce the road surface width from 24 feet to 20 feet along that access easement from South Dakota Highway 44, goes through the 4 lots. There's a house that's on the back side of the lot, except the western 250 feet from the residence. It's about 250 feet out to the irrigation ditch, and the county wanted that to be surfaced in some way so they could get back there to maintain that ditch. But Planning Commission recommended that it not necessarily have to be paved with asphalt, but with some dust something to hold down the dust like millings or something like that. And also to deny the variance to waive the requirements to install curb gutter along the access easement along that access easement. There's no other curb and gutter out there. It's off of Highway 44. And at this time, the Planning Commission just felt that would not be required to install the curb and gutter.
Okay. Ron, you still have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Bob. We're waiving the water and sewer, though. There's going to be 4 lots in there?
Yes, they have individual wells, and they'll have the septic systems.
There's no sewer for them to hook up to right now, right?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? If
Thank
not,
you.
let's go to Alderman Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of curb and gutter, I think the community at some point has to move forward and consider not having curb in a lot of streets. In a lot of areas, it doesn't make any sense. It's more expensive to do snow removal, and it's a barrier with our stormwater regs as well. So at some point, it does make some sense to allow and not demand curb and gutter. And it's also more expensive to put in. So I just want the council to think in terms of that as we move forward.
Very good, thank you. Motion on the floor is to approve in part and deny in part per the Planning Commission's recommendations. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 119, please.
Authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the waiver of right to protest future assessment for the installation of pavement, curb, gutter, water, sewer, street light, conduit, and sidewalk. And this is located at 2255 and 2505 Fort Hayes Drive. Motion be for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second for approval. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 120, please.
This is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineering for Herman Jones for a variance to subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install pavement, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street, light, conduit, water, and sewer dedicated additional right-of-way as per Chapter 16 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is located at 2255 and 2505 Fort Hayes Drive. And move for approval with steps.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of stipulations. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this just moving the lot line? Is that what's happening here?
Bob? Would they do take away your mic?
I'm not sure that one works down
Okay.
there. So, they are vacating part of the easement, and there is a portion of the lot line, just a portion of the lot line that is being relocated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that was my
Very
only
good.
question. I just want to make
Motion-
sure that's what I understood.
Motion on the floor is for approval with stipulations. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 121, please.
Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign the waiver of right to protest future assessment for the installation of curb, gutter, street, light, conduit, water, sewer, and additional pavement along Nemo Road to install curb, gutter, street, light, conduit, and water, sewer, and pavement along the existing section line highways and proposed 50-foot wide private access and utility easement as they abut the portion. And this is located at 8970 Nemo Road. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 122, please.
It's a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Robert Schmitz for variance to subdivision regulations to waive the requirements to install curb, gutter, street, light, conduit, sidewalk, water, sewer, and pavement, and to waive the requirements to dedicate right-of-way as per Chapter 1616 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. This is located at 8970 Nemo Road, and move to approve with stipulations.
We have a motion and a second for approval of stipulations. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 123, please.
123 is the second reading of ordinance number 5379, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code rezoning the within described property as requested by Kristen Lowe for Tracy Klatt for rezoning from general commercial district to medium density residential district located at 4216 Canyon Lake Drive, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Discussion on that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are on to item number 124, the bill list. Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. The bill list totals $6,228,388.16. There are no additions or changes.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the bill list totaling $6,228,388.16. Any discussion on that motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Oh, let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney. Do we have anything for executive session?
No, we do not.
Move to approve. Move to adjourn. No way, you're lying.
Okay, we have nothing else. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? I didn't think so. We are adjourned.